We now come to the final way that CSS will resolve a conflict, and that has to do with something called specificity. You've heard me mention this a couple of times and refer to it as the last resort, if you will. Specificity is a bit difficult because it is a complex algorithm, and in other words, it's math. So there are ways to calculate this algorithm, and unfortunately, the way CSS1, CSS2, CSS2.1, and now CSS3 all interpret this algorithm is slightly different and therefore causes us some challenges there as well. But I'm going to show you how a rule that is conflicting can be resolved by making another rule more specific. And what this means is really putting, the actual terminology would be adding weight to a rule, the weight of a given rule, how important it is, not with the important keyword, but how important it is in this specificity algorithm means that it will trump another style. Specificity, again, obviously very complex. There are resources that go into the technical details beyond the example that I'm going to give you here, so that if you want to learn about that algorithm and how to calculate it, if that kind of thing interests you, then certainly take a look at the bookmarks.html file and read all about the specificity algorithm. In the meantime, I've got my chapter 4 files open, and I'm going to go ahead and create a conflict and resolve it using specificity. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to style my paragraph here. So I've added a style where I've got a background color and a text color of a mid-gray. We'll save that, go ahead and preview in Firefox, and as we see, we're very much where we were in the last movie. We have paragraphs with a pink background and a mid-gray text. Let's flip on over to Dreamweaver, and you'll notice that I've added an ID of 1 to the first paragraph. So I'm going to create a rule here for 1 that makes the color green, and I'm going to put it up above. And then we're going to save it, and we're going to go over to Firefox, and we're going to reload. And of course, now we've seen that this is changing it. Okay, let's go back and see why. Okay. Whoops, excuse me there. I'm trying to make this a little more tidy for you. If we recall the source order issue, everything says that the information that is later, right, that this is later, closer to the content, this is the color that should win in this case. Now, while when we look in Firefox, we see that in every other paragraph, this is being applied with the gray color. This particular paragraph, which has the unique identifier, even though that rule is appearing higher up in the source order, it's being applied. The reason for that is that IDs bear more weight than regular elements. And so this is a piece of specificity saying that this is a more specific rule than this one. So it is going to apply. So what we can do to make a rule more specific is to add more information. Let's say you have elements, IDs, classes, whatever. The more you can put into that rule to make it more and more and more detailed and specific, the better chances that rule will always trump are. So let's go ahead and see what happens when I add the 1 right there to the paragraph. See, now I've made it more specific. It's got the element and the ID connected to it, right? All is one kind of thing. This is a more specific rule. And now this is going to take precedence. So let's go on over to Firefox, do a refresh, and as you can see, it has in fact taken precedence. And we've lost certain styles because of that. So let's go ahead and go on back. So in this case, we've made the style for the background color only related to the unique identifier, which is why all that pink dropped out of all of the paragraphs except the one with the 1 ID. But you'll notice that the color is in fact gray, even though we had at one time a higher specificity of green. Now, you'll say, Molly, wait a second. Okay, so you made this rule more specific. That makes sense that it would trump this, but it is later in the source order, so it should also be applied. Well, if we go ahead and pop this over and above, you'll see why specificity still trumps. Cartwheel on over to Firefox, reload, and nothing changes, even though we've just changed the source order, because that particular rule is more specific than this one. And no matter where it is in the cascade, no matter what its origin is, it could be in a linked style, in a style sheet, it doesn't matter. The higher specificity is always going to win. That is the final conflict resolution within CSS.